Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In my last video, I said why I am rebuilding my community with Claude Code and Antigravity. And today is going to be the first live episode of the live build that I'm doing. So essentially, I will be trying to build as many features as possible today. And if you don't know, I have this community called No Code Buffs. It is essentially for no code builders, freelancers, solopreneurs, and so on. But this platform here was built entirely on Bubble. And I want to switch this platform to full code, like I said on this video here. And this is what I'm doing today. So I plan to really just brainstorm and show you my process for developing applications, and we'll see what we can get done today. First of all, look, I am going to be building this entire application using Antigravity. So if you haven't played around with Antigravity, it's very, very similar to Claude Code. And actually, you can use the Gemini 3.1 Pro models, and you can also use Claude models over here. I am paying for Antigravity, and I am on the lowest plan. I also pay for Claude Code, that I am also on the lowest plan, but I feel like I can get a lot more usage with the Antigravity plan compared to the Claude Code. So I'm going to start using Antigravity until I run out of credits, and then I could just pull up the Claude Code inside Antigravity and keep working on my application if we get to a point where we don't have credits. I'm really considering buying the $200 plan for Claude Code to essentially build this project. But I've been doing a lot with these lower tier plans, and I think we could probably get this done in a few days without having to buy the $200 plan. But we'll see. We'll see. So essentially, what I want to show you first is some of the planning that I've done. I've been brainstorming a few things about my community here with Claude for a good amount of time. And so it has a lot of the context, it has the memory, it has the knowledge about what I'm trying to build. And so I feel like brainstorming here for me has been a little bit better than trying to brainstorm with a model that doesn't have any context about my project. So I was brainstorming yesterday some ideas and some specs of the product that we will be building today. And the first thing that I did was to create a CLAUDE.md file. So a CLAUDE.md file is essentially a file that our agent will read every time we start a new session. And so in this file, it will have some context about the project. It will show the main architecture. We have some information about designs, and we also have some information about how the agent should act, right? So we have how to deal with skills, we have commands, we have some secure, we have some real time. This is going to be important for us since we're dealing with a community feed. And so we want to be able to update this feed when someone posts a new question instead of waiting for the user to refresh the page. So we have some information about workflow orchestration. We have plan mode, sub-agent strategy, self-improvement loop. This is really, really interesting here, where it will store all the corrections on this lessons.md. So we have some information here about verification, autonomous bug fixing, task management, code style, do nots, and gotchas. I've just essentially compiled a few CLAUDE.md files that I've found out there on LinkedIn, on YouTube videos, and I've added my own tweaks of things that I've noticed along the way. So, for example, one thing that I've added is this architecture folder. I have some instructions here for creating architecture MD files for every feature or page that we create. And this is really important because it outlines the database, the logic, the context, everything that it has done to create the, let's say, the onboarding page and logic, right? And so if a couple days from now we work on another piece of the onboarding, we can direct the model to read the architecture from the onboarding to pick up all the context and look at all the logic that has been implemented to be able to modify that properly. So essentially gives the model a really big overview of that feature before it goes into update. And for humans, that's great too, right? Because most of the time, like, we don't know what's going on. And if I go to the architecture MD file for the auth page or the onboarding, I can really understand what's going on. I can see information about the database, the logic, and the context overall. So with that being said, I guess now what I want to do is to show you a little bit of my planning as well. Let me go to buff stack again, product specification. So look, I've created this project here called Buff Stack, and as you can see, I've done some brainstorming here, and then I've opened this file to create essentially product specs, right? So from my experience, I've built a few applications just prompting without giving really details about a feature. So essentially, hey, just build me a login page, right? And so it's gonna use all the knowledge that it has based on the model, the training to generate that page. And I think what I want to do here, just to minimize the back and forth that I'm gonna have with the LLM, um, is that for each feature or each page, I essentially wanted to provide a really detailed spec documentation that outlines everything about that feature or that page, right? So, for example, if we are building the auth page, right, I want to specify all the user flows. So, hey, when the user signs up, I want to take them to the onboarding. Now, if the user clicks on forgot password, I want to show a pop-up, and this pop-up should, send a magic link to that email and so on. So I want to really detail everything, not specifically the design, but like the logic and so on, so that the model has less time like trying to figure out and compiling all the information of what it needs to do, but instead it's going to spend more time implementing what we have already planned. So I think this is a good strategy, and we'll take a look how that works out today. So the first thing that I did was to create a specification document for the entire application. And I think that was too much, and it's going to be too much to for like a one-shot prompt. I definitely do not want to build this entire application with one prompt. So, let's just quickly take a look at this. You can see that it has 39 pages. So this is absurd for one prompt. There's a lot going on here. So, what I plan to do was to essentially break down this spec document for every feature or every page and essentially give the AI all the information that it needs to implement a page, or a feature, right? So the first document that I have here is a landing page specification. So I've brainstormed the sections, the hero section, the who is it for, what do you get, the pricing, about Lucas, FAQs, and so on. And so I'm going to use this specification document for now just to create the landing page. So good. Now that we have the Gemini.md file and we have our first specification document, let's move over to Antigravity to start a new project. So this is above Stack V2. I was playing around with this, but we are going to start a completely new project. So let me open a folder, create a new folder. And this is going to be called Buff Stack Official. Trust the authors. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do here is to basically just get my Gemini.md file, or CLAUDE.md file. That works as well. So I did some. Oh, so one thing that I need to modify here is the part about this Shadcn library. So I don't want to use that anymore. So let me just save this file and move that to the folder. Let me save as. Go to downloads. Let me replace it. Now here on Antigravity. Now I'm actually gonna just give me a second here. I'm on the monitor. I'm just gonna move this file to my folder here. There we go. So I'm just going to paste this here, and we should see it here on our Explorer. So let me rename this to CLAUDE.md. And now let me remove this part from Shadcn UI. Great. So let's save this. The first thing that I want to do is to ask the model to create our architecture here, and initialize all the folders and so on. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do. So hey man, so we're starting a new project here, and I essentially want you to initialize the project. So If you read the CLAUDE.md file, you will see that we have a architecture, and we essentially need to create all these folders and reproduce that architecture on our project if we don't have those folders yet. So please initialize the project and then we're good to move on. Great. So while the agent initializes our project here, let's go ahead and grab the landing page spec. So let me go to projects. Let me go to buff stack, project or product specification. Yeah, so this is a doc file, and I essentially want to turn this into an MD file. So I think what I'm going to do, we have 28 pages. I'll just ask the model to create this file. That's fine. So let me essentially open in Word first. Okay. And so I'm going to copy the entire spec. I'm going to move here to Antigravity, and I'll essentially ask Gemini Pro to create me the spec document. And so let's just let it finish and initialize the project. We can see here that we have already created a few folders here. So architecture, tasks, and so on. And it is still creating. So we'll be back when that's done. All right, so I created all the folders for us. So we have a .claude folder that we have agents, commands, and skills inside. Obviously, we don't have anything inside these subfolders, but that's something that we can add as we need throughout the project. We have the architecture folder. Inside the architecture folder, okay, so I see a problem here. The design folder is inside the architecture folder. So I do not want to have this happen here. I want the design to be its own folder with inspiration and the logo folder inside. And so I'm going to ask it to do that for me. In tasks, we have lessons.md and to do it.md. So, hey man, so one thing that I want to change here is that I want to move the design folder with its subfolders from inside the architecture to outside. Essentially, the design should be its own folder outside the architecture like the other folders. And I want you to make this change and also update our CLAUDE.md file. Okay, perfect. Now let's send it over. You can see here that I'm on fast mode as well. So the agent will execute tasks directly without asking a lot of things for planning, but this is good when you want to make quick changes. But whenever we are essentially building the features throughout the application, we can use the planning mode. But since we have already planned most of the stuff using Claude, I think I might just want to use fast for a lot of the features and the pages, but we'll see how that goes. So, okay, essentially changed our CLAUDE.md file. Now it moved the design folder outside, which is great. So that's perfect. Now, if we want to essentially create a new feature, and what I always recommend is to start a new conversation so the model doesn't get confused and it has the right context to perform its actions on that specific page. But what I want to do here is to create the landing page spec. So I'm going to copy what I had there from the Word document here and say something like, hey, I have all these specification here for our landing page below, and I want you to turn all these specification into a landing page spec MD file that we can reference it later. So essentially use all the text below to create a spec MD file for our landing page. Okay. So I've just pasted everything here. Probably not a good use of tokens, but that's fine. Let's just wait for this to finalize. Okay, so it created the file landingpage.md, and apparently it placed inside architecture. So I just want to change the name here to, rename to landing page spec, so we can differentiate the specification documents from the actual architecture documents. I might want to create a folder for specifications, but for now, I think this is good here. We can reference this document from inside architecture. So now what I think I want to do is to start a new conversation, and let's start trying to create our landing page. I want to provide some design references as well, but for now, let's say something like this. Hey, so I want you to act like a senior designer and front end designer to create a landing page according to our landing page specification document. And I want you to take as much time as you need and as many resources as you need to create the best landing page possible. It should be modern and have a premium feel. Please do not take shortcuts. Okay, so let's say something like this. Whenever we say specification document, I essentially want to reference that document specifically. I also want to say I've attached a couple of images for inspiration. I do not want you to copy the design from these websites, but I want you to take inspiration from these websites that have been generated by top end designers. Also, please move the provided references to the design inspiration folder. Okay, perfect. So what I want to do now is to essentially get these references. We can go to Dribble. Dribble is usually a good place to find references. Ooh, this looks nice. Cool. Not exactly what I'm going for, but this looks awesome. Okay. So we can do like web application and do a search here. And what I also like to do, if you have some specific websites that you really like, I think it's always good to reference them. So Attio.com, for example, I think the design here is extremely simple and very, very clean. I want to add like a stronger primary color, but I think the design overall looks very, very clean. So I like this. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is to use this extension here, go full page, and it's going to take the screenshot of the entire page for us. And this is going to be one of my design references. I'm going to download this as a PNG. Let me save that. Another website that I like, it's called Himalayas app. It is essentially a job search platform for designers. Awesome. So let me save this as a PNG on my downloads. And now let's move back to Antigravity and attach the media. So design references are done. I think I'm going to use Gemini 3.1 Pro since it's just for design. So let's do this. So we'll come back when this finishes generating. All right, so it is still finalizing the landing page, but something really, really interesting here that happened that is especially useful on Antigravity compared to Claude Code is that it has a Chrome extension that it's able to essentially open up the application on a Chrome browser, take screenshots, and really see the implementation. And this is really, really incredible because it opened up the browser, it saw an error here in the middle of the page, and then it went back to fix the error. So it is taking screenshots and essentially just correcting itself. So it looks like it's done. Let's see. Oh, it's still generating. But this is what we have so far, which is interesting. I like the dotted pattern here in the background. I love this social proof here. The buttons here, the animations. I guess if we refresh the page, we get some animations here out of the box that it built for us. I'm not liking the design overall. I think it's not using too much like a grayscale, but you know, we can do a little bit of back and forth to see what's going on. So, yeah, you can see that this button here doesn't really show its borders. So I kind of want to provide a few more images to really get the style together before we make any changes in the layout. So let's see what we can do here. So let me go to Himalayas again and let me take some inspiration from this. All right. Hey man, so this was a good first try. I essentially want to change a few things on in terms of design. The first thing that I want to mention is that the title on the hero section is not visible at all, so that needs to be fixed. I'm also providing a few more reference images that you can take a look at. And essentially, I'd like a cleaner implementation with some sort of also like gray accent colors to pair well with the primary colors. I think the landing page looks too white. I don't necessarily want to include a lot of colors, but I want to have this like gray contrast with the backgrounds and so on. I really like the patterns that you've added, the dotted patterns, the grid patterns, and so on. And I also want to make the features section a little bit tighter. So essentially, I want to display the features and cards, sort of like the image that I've attached for you. And so for each feature, I also want you to improve the mockups that you've created. So overall, just make it cleaner, just make it feel premium, and follow the design references from the images provided. All right, so it finished generating some of the things that we've asked. Look, it is a little better, but still not where it should be. And I realized what the problem was. So I made the changes. It's showing the entire hero section title here. It's using some card styles here and so on. It is a little bit better, but far from what it needs to be. And so what I've realized here is that we're still using the Shadcn library. So I've asked here, are we using the Shadcn library? It is still in the packet JSON, and we're indeed using this library. So I think that's why, even with this new prompt that I've created here with this new design references, it's still trying to use the Shadcn library, and that's why it's not making the changes that we need here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is actually start over. I'm not going to bore you to explain everything again and show the entire process because you know exactly what to do. But essentially, I will find on my CLAUDE.md file and my spec document where I'm mentioning the Shadcn library. I will completely remove that and I will start a new project. I will copy the first prompt that we had that is essentially like, hey, build the landing page according to this specification document, and then I'll show you the results of the first prompt in a second. All right, so I've just reinitialized the project. So now it's called BuffStack Official V2. I have officially regenerated or initialized the folders, and now I just have my prompt again. Let's build a beautiful landing page according to the spec document. I want you to create a modern, beautiful looking landing page for our community, following every detail on the spec file. I am providing some images as design references, and I want you to use the exact design system. We can change this later. And I just said, finally, act as a senior designer and use all the compute you have available. Do not cut corners and spend as much time as you need. What's most important here is quality, not speed. So I've also changed this. Let's keep it on fast, but I've also changed this to Claude Opus 4.6. So now we can just try a different model, see what we get on the second try. So I'm going to let this run here and we'll come back here with the first version. All right, awesome. So it has finished and let's see how we can access it. So if I come here to the terminal and do a new terminal, I can simply write the command npm run dev. It should open up the localhost. And then if we click here, we should be able to see the website. So it opened up on my monitor and here it is. So honestly, out of the box, it's looking a lot better. Some of the sections or the mockups look really great. I really like this. These mockups specifically about the features, these are awesome. I do like the logos here with this little scrolling animation, but I'd like to see some of the logos here. So for Stripe, Tailwind, and so on. These cards look very AI generated. The borders are not super solid, but that's fine. I've also noticed that all the primary buttons, they seem to be white. I think there's probably, oh, there we go. So a button here as well. So this is something that I'm going to ask. Pricing table looks awesome. Same problem here with the button. This section here about the founder looks good. These FAQ sections, perfect. Same problem with the button. Overall, the design looks very clean. And I really like this. So I'm going to go ahead and dictate whatever I see here as a problem so we can fix. And look, I'm not going to do too much detailing on the design itself so we can move to the other parts of the application. But there are some things here that I need fixing, right? So let's do that right now. So the first thing that I'm noticing here is that the primary button is completely white, and I need the primary button to be the same as the image reference attached. All right, so I've just sent my changes here that I want to make. I provided a few more reference images. So let's see what Gemini can do for us. So I'm changing the primary color to the no-code buffs primary color. I provided some references on the buttons. This section here looks really good. I want my feature section to have something similar. I think having a feature stacked on top of each other is going to be really long. And so provided this as reference as well. So I'm excited to see what we get. And then after that, I think we can move to the auth page. So we don't spend too much time on the landing page today. Look, I'm still going to refine the landing page. Besides the fact that I got the first try of the project really wrong because of the Shadcn library. If we get it right until here, it's basically just like creating the Gemini.md file, creating the spec for the landing page, providing some reference images, and basically with one prompt to design the landing page and a second prompt to apply the changes, basically you've built the entire landing page with two prompts, right? Now that's assuming that you've planned using Claude or some other LLM and you planned really well before implementing on Antigravity or Claude Code. So we could have probably done this a lot faster if it wasn't for the Shadcn library. So let's keep that in mind. All right, so still waiting for Gemini to finish the edit. While Gemini was working, I also got my logo. So the buff stack logo here before it was no code buffs. I'm still using the same logo icon for now, but I might change this later, but I kind of like this buffalo here. So I think I'm just going to keep it for now. So I will try to introduce this logo here as well. Gemini is still working, but for now we still get this rendering or loading issue. So whenever I refresh the page, I thought it was going to stay there. So it shows the big title, it shows the buttons, but then for some reason it doesn't show again. It seems like it's not rendering just for bubble and everything else looks good. So I will just keep this for now. It did make some changes here to the ICP cards. This is very, very good. It looks a lot better. It is probably still working on the feature part, and it didn't really change the primary colors here on the rest of the application. So I think it's still working on that for now. So we'll check back in a few seconds. No, it seems like it has worked on the features section. Let's see. Okay, this looks a lot better. Look at this. Awesome. So up on the sizing of these mockups, I think, but it definitely looks a lot better for sure. Yeah, look, this hero section also looks good. There's just a problem with rendering here. I've had this happen in other projects and I still don't know why this happens. So before it was happening on Edge, and then I decided to open on Chrome. Let me try this again. And let's see if we are on the 3000. So we are on 3001. Nice. Okay. I thought we were going to have this problem again. Okay, it is taking screenshots of their work. So I'm going to stop the agent now. I'm going to skip the screenshots since I already checked here and it looks good on Chrome right here. Localhost 3000. It has some animations. It added the images here. Perfect. Of course, we'll need to change the copy and so on, but okay, the buttons look nice. No pages here, of course. I like this tag. I think it can be improved, but I like it for now. It didn't really add anything on the background that I asked. I mean, the pattern and so on, but that's fine. The mock-up here still has the old like color palette, let's say, but that's fine for now. This section looks good, so just a matter of the mock-ups fitting on the cards well. So that's something here that we've seen. It didn't really change the purple color here. Maybe I wasn't it clear to just use the primary color as orange everywhere. But that's fine. This button here also looks great. And I think this mostly looks very good. So what I probably want to do now is to just give it another prompt so that we finalize the last little bit of details before we move to the auth page. So, hey, so I like how the landing page turned out. There's just a few more details that I wanted to include to finalize the landing page. All right, so I'm going to send that over to make the final fixes. And I am going to prepare the auth page spec right now while Gemini works on the final changes. So let's check this. Okay, awesome. This looks amazing. This looks really, really good. Okay, pricing. about myself. Awesome. All in the buff stack colors. Okay. Look, honestly, very, very simple landing page. It didn't really implement the patterns here in the back, but I think that is fine for now. Okay, so the logo didn't render too well. Let me see in the footer also. So I guess I'll change the landing page and the small design tweaks later.